you want to hear something crazy?
Hmm.
I had zero interest in computer science. Like,
What did you want to do? I'm training for a half marathon.
you're training for a half marathon.
Yeah,
Wow. So when is your half marathon?
a week and a bit from now.
Okay, okay. I know Vancouver very little,
Hmm.
but like I'm picturing you running at Stanley Park and like what would be 21 kilometers of Stanley Park? Like what's the route like?
You like 21 kilometers is like looping Stanley twice
Wow.
and a bit more. Yeah.
So if you loop Stanley Park twice, that's insane. That's how big Stanley Park is.
Yeah, it's a 10-kilometer loop.
Damn. So is that how you train?
I train like I just run on campus, like in
Oh,
between classes.
okay.
And campus is like really great for running. Like there are like so
Yeah.
many routes.
Cool.
And so yeah, just
Mhm.
like 3 runs a week. This Sunday I have to run 18 kilometers, which is like the longest run I've ever done.
Wow.
But yeah, it's really fun to
Mhm.
just like push your limits
Yeah.
mentally and physically.
Mhm.
So I find it really rewarding. Yeah.
Nice. Um, because like I swear people in BC are built different.
It's true.
Um, I have gone on a hike once with my BC friends, and I was thinking of an
Hmm.
Ontario hike, and
Hmm.
they took me to Garibaldi's.
Yep.
Yeah, I that was the most scariest, most physically exhausting hike I've done in my lifetime. You know,
Yeah.
um, so you're training for a half marathon. That's awesome. So, what made you get into it?
Yeah. I think like whenever I feel like as school has progressed and you realize that like all your time is kind of consumed by like either school or like other like work activities.
Yeah.
And I felt like I needed to allocate time for myself. Like in
Mm,
the past,
right.
I never allocated time for myself. And so like realizing that like if I like work out and I spend this like hour just like pure running, like the most simple act that I could
Mm,
do, like I feel like it like fuels my body and it like fuels my mind.
right.
And also just the act of like setting a goal and then like actually just like reaching that goal in a
Hmm.
different part of my life that isn't like career or academic. It's been really rewarding. So yeah.
Nice. Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Are you a music listener, podcast listener, or do you raw dog your entire 21 kilometer? Like, what's your run style?
Yeah, it's been like podcasts for long runs, so like
Right.
a 2 hour, 1 hour podcast.
Hmm.
At the start of the run, I listen to music to like hype myself up.
Yeah.
At the end of the run, I need music because I'm just dying and like
Hmm.
my legs do not want to go more.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
that's the strategy.
So, have you got a vest? Did you end up getting a running vest? Okay.
Yeah,
I'm gonna do it.
the money has been spent.
Yeah, yeah, because I'm gonna do some checks now. What brands of running shoes are you wearing?
Brooks.
Okay, okay. I haven't heard
Yeah.
of one. I was wondering if it's gonna be an ASIC or a Hoka coming out. Now, what's the weather like for Vancouver currently?
Rainy, kind of cold,
Yeah, like
fall
10,
vibes,
like 15 degrees?
15 degrees on
Okay,
and
cool,
off.
cool.
Yeah.
So, do you have a waterproof running gear?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
You- uh,
Yeah, yeah.
Or I kind of accept the rain as well. Like if I get soaked, I get soaked.
Yeah.
Like that's just part of the
Hmm.
run, you know?
Cool, cool, cool. Wow.
Hmm.
Huge respect because long distance running is very difficult. It's
Hmm.
you're it's a physical challenge and it's also a mental battle at the same time. You gotta like convince yourself like, hey, I need to run 4 more kilometers even though I'm running on fumes. Um,
Yep.
have you been like do you do like calories tracking or do like carb load?
I've been trying to get into carb loading,
Mm,
but it's hard.
yeah.
Yeah. I think it's just like my body kind of rejects it almost. Like it feels wrong to only eat like
Mm-hmm.
pizza
Yeah.
and like stuff like that. Yeah.
Like I would love to live that life, just eating pizza,
Hmm.
but I don't run that distance, so I don't need to do that much carb loading. Like I think I can do it naturally, but just the amount of calorie you burn from running is
Yeah.
insane.
It's crazy. Like people think you lose weight, but you gain weight running because
Cause you,
you're so hungry. Like
yeah,
I'm ravenous after I
hmm
run.
yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Have you thought about like triathlons too?
Hmm. Yeah.
Ooh,
I know I want to do a marathon like before I graduate.
wow.
Triathlon, I don't know. Like I'm not a big swimmer,
Okay,
but
cool.
I told myself I want to do Ironman in my life. I don't know if
Yeah,
it'll happen,
cool.
but yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah. So like you have these goals set now after you started running.
Hmm.
Would Boston Marathon ever be on your radar?
Because you have to qualify for Boston,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I don't know. I think like traveling somewhere to run seems like more work.
Mm,
Like I see running as just like an outlet for like
yeah.
other like life things, right? So
Hmm.
to turn it into like something that I need to go someplace to do
Right.
kind of like contradicts why I run, which is that I can do it anywhere
Hmm.
at almost any time.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll
Awesome.
see.
So would you be able to introduce yourself, talk about what you do, and I don't know, maybe a little like how we know each other kind of thing?
Hmm. I'm Brianna. I'm currently in fourth year engineering physics at UBC, and I met Mr. Park in, I think, grade 10
Yeah.
computer science
Hmm.
class.
So you're currently studying engineering science, correct, at UBC?
Like engineering physics.
Engineering physics.
Yeah,
Sorry,
same thing.
I
Yeah.
yeah. So how did you get into that?
Like I knew I wanted to do something physics related.
Hmm.
Like I remember we've had conversations where I talked or you talked about how I should go to like a 2 year college program and like I should just like get into school and then get out as quickly as possible. Like that was one approach I was considering.
Yeah.
The other approach was just like, oh, like pick a more like hardcore degree and just
Hmm.
like be challenged academically by it rather
Yeah.
than do the like more challenging things outside of school.
Hmm.
And so for me, like when I did an internship in high school at this company called Sanctuary Eye in
Yeah.
Vancouver, I had the time to like one live here and like kind of love like Vancouver as a
Uh-huh.
city,
Yeah.
and then two, the people I was working with were engineering physics alumni, and they kind of like sold me on the program.
Hmm.
So they brought me to this like summer robot competition. So every year, the second year students have this 2 month long robot course where we build
Yeah.
autonomous robots like from scratch. So
Yeah.
you build like your PCBs or your protoboards from scratch as well.
Hmm.
And the goal is just to like get a functioning robot in the shortest amount of time possible and like
Hmm.
compete with other students in your cohort.
Right.
And I think that course kind of sold me on it of like, oh, I get to like learn a lot of like fundamental like physics and math while
Hmm.
also applying it in like an interesting like
Right.
context.
Hmm.
So that's why I'm here, I'd
Yeah.
say.
If you don't mind me asking, like, can you reflect on that? Like, you literally went from Ontario to a whole new province at such a young age to do an internship at a company, right? That's
Hmm.
that's something very rare. Even my little brother, when he got his first internship because he was going through his own stories and whatnot, he was 19 basically. Like you're much younger than
Hmm.
that. So do you want to share that story of how that happened, if you're okay?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I met the founder of that company at a conference in Toronto and I like instantly recognized his face.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, I should go talk to him and just like ask him questions about what he works on at the company.
Yeah.
So I did that and I was just like explaining like a small project that I worked on that was related to I think like natural language processing at the time.
Hmm.
Or just like something I learned about it. And then we hopped on a call like 2 weeks later and it was like this 3 hour call where we talked about like consciousness
Hmm.
and like AI and how we can develop like human intelligent robots, which is what they're working on at the
Yeah.
time. And so it was really fun to just like pick someone's brain who is like decades older than me about a
Hmm.
subject that they're like very, very knowledgeable about.
Right.
And then I had a chance to come back to Vancouver for a conference at some point. So I visited the company and then we got to like have an in-person conversation and I got to do like a tour of the company and I asked them for an internship when I was there.
Hmm.
And yeah, it kind of just like worked out really nicely for
Yeah.
me. And I was really happy to just have like pure freedom for a
Hmm.
summer and like live by myself and kind of be like
Yeah.
an adult in some way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing. You have always been interested in AI. Basically, you've been interested in like how machines can be intelligent, right?
Hmm.
Like ever since grade 10, basically. How does it feel now that you are Ray? That AI is currently everywhere. We're trying to do like a lot of like language processing, and we're trying to improve that more and more and more. With basically, we're doing some shady things by throwing bunch of unsupervised learning and bunch of data at it, and just calling it AI, right? But
Hmm.
you're essentially right at grade 10, right?
Hmm.
Back then, you were
Yeah.
right that this is the way to go. This is the future, and this is what I want to study. Don't you want to kind of like stick it to some of the old teachers who kind of doubted you and stuff?
No, I think it's just like a difference in perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think like at that time, I was like, it's kind of amazing to see like the difference in resources that existed. Like, in my engineering physics like program, we have a project course where we basically have this little robot in like a simulation environment, and we can make like a computer vision model that can like then make the robot drive on this road and then like read these license plates and like detect like that image data,
Mm-hmm.
and then also it has to like drive on this road course, and you can use like reinforcement learning, imitation learning, whatever you want. It's really cool to see like back then I was trying to learn this stuff and it was so difficult
Mm-hmm.
relative to now where you can find like a billion YouTube
Yeah.
videos explaining how these things work,
Mm-hmm.
which is really great. Like it's a really exciting time for
Mm-hmm.
these technologies to be developed.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think I'm just happy that
Mm-hmm.
we've made a lot of progress.
Yeah. Cool. Cool.
Mhm.
So you've mentioned that, like in the past, it was difficult to learn some of these content, but now there's like a lot of information out there that's like readily available. Um, so what is your go-to learning process?
Yeah, I'd say like first it's normally I go like, oh, this particular topic, textbook, Reddit,
Yeah.
or like even at a surface level, like I'll watch some YouTube videos about it, or I will just ask ChatGPT to explain like what this thing is, and then like what are subtopics, and then do the research on the subtopics myself.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just depends on the purpose in which I'm learning something for.
Okay.
Yeah, if it's something where like I want to get a job in this particular thing, like what I
Mm-hmm.
did recently is I have a bunch of friends who live in San Francisco, and so I went there and I like crashed at their couch, and then
Yeah.
I would like interview people who are working in the roles that I
Mm-hmm.
want, basically, just like talk to them about like
Mm-hmm.
what their like education was, like what projects did they work on, what are things that I should be doing like right now given my age.
Mm-hmm.
So just like people are generally willing to talk to you, and like
Mm-hmm.
they're very generous with resources and their time. If
Mm-hmm.
you ask them questions, then you just
Right.
like email them basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's cool. So you basically cold called.
Yeah,
You
I just
literally,
cold
yeah,
calling.
you literally traveled to a new country, a random city, and you cold call random people of what they do. Okay,
Yeah.
that's really cool. Mentorships then, like, and like
Mhm.
networking, is that a big factor in your life?
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's like how I've gotten most opportunities that have like substantially changed
Hmm.
my worldview on something
Yeah.
is by like working somewhere or like having a really insightful conversation with someone.
Hmm.
Yeah.
In terms of mentorships and like networking and cold calling, um, is that teachable? Like, can we give advice to students about that, or
Mhm.
is this something just that you're born with?
Yeah, definitely not. I think it just comes down to like, oh, you kind of like find your target person on LinkedIn,
Hmm.
and then you try to just like craft an email that shows like your genuine interest in
Hmm.
like what they're doing.
Yeah.
So like don't be transactional and like say
Hmm.
things that
Yeah.
seem smart, for
Hmm.
example. Just like say genuinely like why you're interested in talking to them,
Right.
and like what are some of the questions that you have, or even like mentioning some things that you've worked on that are adjacent to what they're working on,
Hmm.
and then just ask them if they'd be willing to have like a 30-minute conversation.
Right.
And a lot of people, assuming that they have the time, like are willing to give you that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So nothing like a chat GPT script, and don't spam those, but rather like a really heartfelt constructed email, I'm guessing.
ChatGPT can help you, of
Okay.
course.
So it'll
It
create a
helps.
baseline.
Exactly.
Yeah,
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 but
yeah.
you have to fine tune it. Yeah.
What's your hope after getting your engineering physics degree? Like what's in store for you, or what do you plan to do?
Like I'm probably gonna work at a startup, like as an E. Like I know I want to do like R&D engineering.
Yeah.
So being like an R&D engineer at a
Mm-hmm.
startup would be like the goal
Yeah.
temporarily.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm not sure if I want to start something myself
Right.
or if I just be content with like owning a team at a
Mm-hmm.
company that like works on really like transformative like technologies. Like
Yeah.
maybe that is sufficiently fulfilling. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's the short term plan.
Mm-hmm. For my students who won't know what R&D stands for or what an R&D engineer is, would you be able to expand on that?
Yeah, sure. So like R&D engineering is like research and development engineering. So they're basically doing research on like how to develop a new product and then like put that out into the world. So
Mm-hmm.
Neuralink is like an R&D startup. They're making something that doesn't exist
Mm-hmm.
and then making a product out of it and potentially testing it on people, which they have.
Right.
Yeah.
What are some
hmm
areas of technology that you would like to transform? Like, what are some inefficiencies you see?
Mm, like I'm not sure right now. I think like in the past few years, like I've done a lot of like exploration of different industries. So the first one, like right after university ended, I worked at General Fusion because I was really interested in climate change, and I was
Yeah.
like, oh, like nuclear energy in particular is so interesting, and
Mm-hmm.
like if only we could make it work
Yes.
at nuclear fusion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think like at the time, like my motivation for learning about these things was like, oh, pure curiosity. And then two, like I was reading about how bad climate change is like for the world
Mm-hmm.
and all the negative impacts on like the people in like the lowest socioeconomic
Yeah.
bracket. Um, and I think I was thinking like, oh, maybe I want to work on something that will impact like everybody on like an even larger scale. Like I thought it
Mm-hmm.
was an existential risk, and
Right.
it's not. And so I think my thought there was like maybe I should just explore different areas. And so I
Mm-hmm.
did this like research term at Cambridge when I was where I was looking at technologies that people use to identify like basically how pandemics spread,
Yeah.
like or how pathogens spread
Mm-hmm.
specifically. Um, I did research for them, and then I was just looking at like, oh, what are the main problems in like sequencing technology? Like, why can't you wake up in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
like brush your teeth, and then like put a sample of your blood, and it tells you like, oh, you have COVID-19.
Right.
Like, if something like that exists, like this
Mm-hmm.
is from like a famous podcast like
Yeah.
in this space,
Right.
but yeah, so I was really interested in like a bunch of different areas, and I think right now I'm just thinking about like what are like the core skills
Mm-hmm.
that I want to develop and focusing a bit more on skill development rather than industry,
Okay.
and like where I want to put my skills in, because I
Mm-hmm.
think like I can learn a lot from people in a variety of industries,
Yeah.
and like given that I'm like very early career, I don't think it matters immensely like where I work, given the fact that they give me like a lot of ownership and that they're working at like a fast
Yeah.
pace and I can learn a lot. And that's what
Mm-hmm.
matters the most.
Right.
So my priorities are just a bit different, I'd say.
Cool.
Yeah.
If you had a chance to like talk to like high school students who are like
hmm
aspiring to be whatever right now, like what advice would you give them?
Hmm. I would say like first just use the internet to learn whatever the heck you want to learn about
Mm-hmm.
and just like be okay with just going down rabbit holes and like allocate yourself time to do that.
Yeah.
Because like when you're the most young, I think it's most important to like just get a lot of exposure to different things.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have to be something that is like super lucrative either. You just be like, maybe you care about making kombucha and you want to
Mm-hmm.
learn about like this the chemistry behind making kombucha. Like yeah,
Mm-hmm.
just learn about it.
Yeah.
Um, I think being like curious is like incredibly important for people in high school because once you're out of high school, they kind of just force you to pick a major,
Yeah.
right? And a lot of people end up picking majors they don't care about,
Mm-hmm.
and then they get stuck and they feel the pressure to finish a degree that they wish they weren't doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think when I see people like in my degree today, like there are some people who like very clearly don't enjoy what they're doing.
Right.
I just feel like it's just like an unfortunate situation. Like whose fault is it? It's not
Mm-hmm.
clear.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. So study what
hmm
you want to study and keep your curiosity up.
Yeah.
Cool. Little backtracking. You talked about you
hmm
worked with like robots, right? Like doing like robotics and circuitry. Um,
hmm
was that part of your course? Like, how did that come into play? Like, did you self teach yourself that too?
Like as of most recently, like we did that robot summer course.
Yeah.
And so that was mainly just like the university gives us a bunch of like lab resources and we have TAs, and you're responsible for building like two autonomous robots that play the game Overcooked, but in real life.
Mm-hmm.
And we're like in groups of four, like
Right.
competing with other students.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a lot of self-teaching. Like we decided to make our own like
Mm-hmm.
custom PCBs
Right.
just out of the virtue of wanting to learn how to make them, not because we needed to.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of university is just like, can you learn how to do something on your own?
Yeah.
Like even though you think like you can rely on your profs, you can't.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and like I tell my students too, but I think you agree that self-learning, like ability to teach yourself and just be reliant on yourself is like an important skill to have, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you work on side projects on your own? Right? Like you
Mm-hmm.
must. Like I can't imagine you always being so theoretical. I can totally see you being hands-on like, "Oh, I want to really create this now," right? Yeah. So any things you can share that's like not so super secretive?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Like right now, I'm on this aero design team. So we basically make
Awesome.
planes, then fly them at this competition.
Nice.
And we're this year we're gonna make like a custom flight controller. So most teams that compete, they just buy an off-the-shelf flight controller. But
Mhm.
we're like, oh, we want to learn how to like make our own
Yeah.
and like write the firmware for it.
Mhm.
And so I'm the one making like the PCBs for our flight controller. So it's
Yeah.
like a really big project,
Yeah.
but it's gonna be really cool.
Oh,
Or
that's so
hopefully,
cool.
it works. Yeah,
That's so
we'll see.
cool.
Hmm.
So you're learning how to write and create PCBs and write firmware. Like that's
Hmm.
very like low level computing and circuits based work.
Yeah.
Like that's the stuff I dodged in university. I was like, oh my god. Well, the prof was like very demanding.
Hmm.
Before day one, he wanted me to read 250 pages. Right. So I was just like, wow, like this is a butthole. But that's so cool. So
Hmm.
how did that work? Like did you just pick up a book, pick up a video?
Yeah, it was literally just like a YouTube video that I watched. It was
Mm-hmm.
like a linear like drop out voltage regulator, and it's like this really small like crappy board.
Mm-hmm.
You just make it and follow this YouTube dude. Then after that, like I had to make them for our robot summer project.
Right.
And so like naturally you just like face a bunch of problems
Mm-hmm.
and you just either ask ChatGPT or ask a friend who knows more than you
Mm-hmm.
how to solve this issue. And then yeah, you just keep doing that and you learn a ton.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I did it. It wasn't through school at all, really.
Right. Um, I want you to go back to your grade 10 self, right?
Hmm.
If I gave you all the tools that you have today, right? Like all the tools, even like the stuff that you see in your university labs, and let's say you went to some cracked high school that had like infinite budget and had access to all these, um, what would you do? Like what would be your student lifestyle?
Hmm. I'm not sure. Like, I'm not sure if I had the knowledge to even know what to do,
Hmm.
but I'd probably search it up though.
Right.
Like right now, I'm not sure. Like I in grade 12, I worked on like this Farnsworth fuser. It's like a small fusion reactor.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would do something like similar to that. Like I was like super interested into like just like nuclear engineering and like
Mm-hmm.
how things work in that industry.
Right.
I'd probably yeah, like right now, like at my university, you can like machine shop any part you want, and
Mm-hmm.
like we have access to it like 24/7.
Yeah.
And so it's like fun that I can build something from the ground up like completely by myself
Yeah.
now.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd probably be doing more of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Is the hands-on process really important for you?
Yeah, I think there's something like that I really enjoy about like the physicality of like just doing engineering things. Like
Yeah.
you spend so much time on your computer like planning things out, like understanding how it works, and then to come to like your circuit board and like debug it. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know why. I just like enjoy the most like mundane parts of it for some reason.
Yeah. Do you think education can be solved at product based?
I mean, I think there's like a lot of like when people learn things, like they always go online and try to supplement their education.
Mm-hmm.
Because like most time, the first time you hear it in class, you don't understand it.
Yeah.
And so I think like things like Khan Academy, like my guess is like if you did enough like interviews with students, like surely you'd find some like problem region that
Hmm.
a lot of students struggle with that you could
Right.
solve in like, software. And I'm sure it'd be like some form of like a software tool is my
Hmm.
guess. I don't know. But my guess is that there are a bunch of problems and like people haven't thought about it much because like nobody, I feel like a lot of students just like complain about education, but like nobody really takes it seriously.
Hmm.
Like they're just like, oh, you're complaining because you're learning.
Yeah.
But the reality is like there are a lot of like real like problems that exist with
Hmm.
the education system.
Right.
So my thought is like surely there has to be products that should exist. I just don't know what they are. But
Right.
yeah.
It's something I wrestle with too, and I would love to brainstorm this with you,
Mm-hmm.
because I thought software and just creating alternative solutions to education was the way until I saw Khan Academy open up legit schools.
Oh really?
Yeah.
They do. Oh
Hmm.
what?
So
Damn.
even them, like they were such a pioneer at like having online education content available online, and like
Mm-hmm.
you don't need to be in a physical classroom to learn. I thought that was really powerful when they started that movement, and like I have huge respect for them. Not that I don't have
Mm-hmm.
respect. I'm not that my respect is any less now because they have a school. It's just I was just so shocked to see that even
Yeah.
that kind of movement started a school. Yes, of course they're following their pedagogical ways, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's interesting to see. So
Yeah. I mean, I think there's just like a huge population of students who like don't have access to good schooling and like would love to hop on a Zoom call with someone like you and just learn from you, right?
hmm.
Like I don't know how you make money from that, to be honest. But
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. Students really focus on what university to go to and what program
Mhm.
to take. Do you see the merit in that? Like,
Mm.
there's a lot of pressure on kids. Like, so many kids right now in my class, it's Waterloo or bust, you know?
Aw.
And for me, it's just flawed. It's very flawed. But,
Mhm.
I'm an old geezer boomer telling them, like, that's not the way. Yeah. I don't
I think it just depends on what you want to do after, right? And I guess like at that age you don't know.
know. Hmm.
So I'd say like I was in this program called integrated engineering at UBC, which at UBC like the most competitive, most difficult program is engineering physics.
Hmm.
We have the clout, so to say.
Yeah.
And so being in a different program and like being with like a very different group of students was interesting. And I think it told me that like I think the program does matter a lot, to be honest. Like
Mm.
because the reality is that whatever program you go to has a lot of filtering mechanisms, and just by chance my program's filtering mechanisms work really well and select the students that I think I end up being friends with and I
Hmm.
enjoy spending time with them.
Hmm.
It's totally possible that like Waterloo has poor filtering
Yeah.
mechanisms. Like who knows, right?
Hmm.
Um, I guess you kind of just don't know until you go there and you like actually experience it. Maybe you could just like talk to students
Hmm.
and like learn about their experiences because like they're just trade-offs to every university, right?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I would say the program matters a bit in the sense that you're going to be with a cohort of students, and maybe you want to be with students who are of like a similar, like, I don't know, like-mindedness to you in some way. Yeah.
Hmm. What can I, as an educator, do better?
Hmm. Like, I feel like my honest opinion is that if you had an experience where like you were teaching the class things that weren't on the curriculum and they just like punished you for that,
Hmm.
like I totally get that it's hard, but I just like I don't know. I wish you worked somewhere where they would not be so restrictive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I almost feel like where you work like puts boundaries on like what you can even do in the first place, right?
Hmm.
And I understand like I don't understand like everything that you have going on in your life, so I'm sure you have your reasons. But yeah, I'd say like that's the one thing of like
Hmm.
I just feel like the environment that you're in is like an unfortunate environment for education.
Yeah.
Or that's my perspective at least.
Cool.
Um, so I'd say that's one thing. And the other thing is probably like I don't remember exactly, but I feel like project courses, everybody gets excited for projects. Like
Hmm.
you make something small and you put a lot of time into it and then you see it work finally.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know if it's possible because the course is so introductory, but
Hmm.
having like any form of a project that students work on,
Yeah.
I think that would just get more people excited about computer science.
Cool.
Um, and maybe even like, I don't know if this is still a problem, but I remember when I took the CS classes, like the gender ratio was pretty bad too.
It's improving.
Yeah,
It's improving.
that's good.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what to do about that, but like maybe maybe projects would help that as well. Like if you were to market
Right.
it in some way. Like I feel like when you walk into the computer science class, you're like, oh, great.
Mhm.
Like I'm not welcome here. Nice. Like it
Yeah.
just it gives a vibe. It's
Mm-hmm.
not your fault, of course. It's just the reality of
Mm-hmm.
it. But yeah, maybe there's probably like women in STEM like programs at different high schools, right? So like
Mm-hmm.
maybe maybe you come to one of the club meetings or something and
Yeah.
you like show some projects that students worked on,
Mm-hmm.
or you talk about like alumni or not alumni, but like past future students that
Yeah.
you like taught, things like that. It's
Mm-hmm.
because like you're giving like girls in particular the idea that like, oh, you actually do fit in this space, even though every time you walk into a class it really seems like you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I guess closing note for other students.
Mm.
I would say if I think about myself when I was like 15 years old, so the other thing that I would tell myself was just like to not worry as much almost. Like I think I was like very stressed about if I wanted to do university or not and like what
Mm-hmm.
were my options in the future.
Yeah.
And I think in general, like if you follow down the trajectory of like following your curiosity and like working hard towards it and just like kind of like taking like the courageous step forward to like put yourself in positions where like you will get opportunities that others may not have,
Mm-hmm.
like things will kind of like naturally fall into place even though you can't see that right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. Cool.
Hmm.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This was so
Of
helpful.
course.
It was a delight talking to you. Yeah.
Yeah, you too.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
I'm happy you're thriving. I'm happy you're enjoying Vancouver because
Hmm.
BC's amazing. I love BC. I would
Yeah.
move out there in a heartbeat if I could.
Do you ever see yourself like not teaching with York Region?
A little bit. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Maybe I need to edit this part out, but no, I'm joking.
Oh no, yeah. Go ahead if you want. I'm
No.
just curious.
Uh yeah, of course. But I think personally I have more dependence now. Like I have a dog behind me who's like sniffing stuff. Like
Hmm.
I have a wife, I have a bill. I'm forever in
Hmm.
debt because you know, like I wish you would put all your brain power to solve housing crisis. That would be super cool too, you know.
It's tough.
It's super tough. Yeah. Uh
Yeah.
but yeah, like I'm in mortgage hell. Um
Hmm.
and so like one thing nice about working public is that well everything's consistent. I'm getting paid consistently, my job is safe, I'm protected by a union. So it has a lot of like protection. But at the same time,
Hmm.
like I think it's completely normal as a human to think like, oh, maybe there's something better. Like, can we achieve better? Because I don't like doing same things over again. I do like improving.
Hmm.
But yeah, so
That's fair.
yeah.
Yeah, it's just difficult. Like when I saw your LinkedIn post, I was really, really hoping that you're working on some education product, and this is
Mm.
like a user interview,
Oh
and like
yeah.
I was gonna give you feedback on your product,
Mm-hmm.
but I totally get it. Like
Right.
life is hard. There's a bunch of reasons. Yeah.